Several months ago, I looked at the ZZZ tier list and I found my favorite at the bottom, Billy. This led me to play him and see just how bad Billy is, and it turns out, he's not that bad at all. Of course, it took a lot of resources and time invested to try to make Billy super strong, but at the end of the day, I found him pretty satisfying to play, and it was worth it. Now that my Billy is pretty much built, I decided there's only one thing to do now. Grab another character and just see how bad they are. The next character we'll be looking at is Corin. Okay. Our favorite green hair not Miku character is now the lowest tiered character in ZZZ. Well, next to Anton and Ben, but we'll get to them in a future video. I've cross-checked this with a few tier lists, and all of them pretty much have Corin at the very bottom. So, I'll be spending all my time, money, and resources so you don't have to, so buckle in. Also, can I just say it feels pretty bad to have her low on the tier list. She looks sad all the time, and like, I feel bad for her. I just want to protect her. Having such a sad-looking character at the bottom of the tiers makes me feel so bad, and you know, I feel like she's been through a lot already. Let's go over Corin. She's a physical unit that was present at launch. Since then, her builds for her haven't really changed so much, thankfully, so she's relatively easy to build. With all the fancy and cool disc sets that came out since launch, she relatively remains unchanged. But we'll go over all the disc stuff later in the video. She is an A rank character, and although that seems kinda sad because obviously we want the shiny and cool S rank characters, if you pull on banners where she has a rate up, then I have no doubt you have her at M6 within a few pulls over time. Well, maybe not a few pulls, but you know, get lucky and you'll get it there eventually. With an extra copy at M1, she's going to be doing a lot more damage to enemies who've already been hit by her chain attack or ultimate. M2 is an absolute must-have though. She can shred enemy physical resistance after hitting them with her EX special, chain, or ultimate attack, so therefore, you kinda want this one more than anything else because shredding enemy defenses mean more damage, of course. And the last Mindscape I want to highlight is her M6, which gives her attacks an extra stack that'll explode, doing more damage. Her M6 is nice, but honestly, her M2 is what you should strive for as it's a major increase in damage. Because of this, her gameplay is heavily reliant on her not being the active character most of the time and only swapped in when the enemy is stunned to deal extra damage. It's really sad that she's considered a bottom tier character because I really like her design. I find her really adorable. I just want to give her head pats. She also has this really cool Frankenstein type aesthetics going on, and I think that's really unique to her character. Her playstyle is also really fun. I like having to use her chainsaw and just saw up enemies. It's kind of fun, actually. Now I know why the Chainsaw Massacre movies exist. That sounds pretty dark. One of my absolute favorite parts about playing her is having to use her big swinging attacks when swapped in during a chain attack or ultimate. It's really fun to catch multiple enemies within it, and I just love pulling that off. And overall, once I had, you know, all the skills invested and I had actual proper level disc and a proper W engine, she was really doing some good damage out there. I didn't struggle against enemies on resource stages like the disc drive ones, which isn't necessarily the biggest measure of whether a character is good or not, but I like to think that, you know, if I'm able to have fun and play simple stages that are at the highest level and still use her viably, then that's still a pretty good sign. If you lack a physical agent or refuse to use Billy, which, by the way, if you don't like Billy or refuse to use him, then we can't be friends, Corin is an excellent alternative choice. As a melee unit, she gets up close and personal, which makes her appealing to play than, say, the long-range combat you may get from Billy. The other alternative is to use Nekomata, the other physical melee unit. But if you're like me, I'm refusing to use her because she's made me lost so many 50-50s, and I'm not a fan of her right now. These tier lists always list characters low, but it's more of how strong they are compared to the high-ranked ones. That, and also how much effort it requires to make said unit good, and I'm not gonna lie, Corin is an expensive baby to take care of and race. But always remember this, if you have a favorite character, as long as you like them, regardless of the tier list, just go full in and make them strong. And for Corin, it was absolutely worth it. Now, unfortunately for me, despite having pulled everyone in ZZZ so far in the game, I still am without her signature W engine. So I settled with Gilded Blossom, which I thought served her best. Now, this is just me going off of what I wanted. You can definitely look at other W engines, and I'm sure most things would fit fine for her. You can even take Brimstone, I heard was really good. If you do happen to have her signature weapon, then of course use that. It's meant for her, of course. That, and she also has a glow with it, so that makes it even more awesome to use. For team comps, I always run Astra in my team because she's just that strong. She is the best support in the game, in my opinion. As of right now, if she ever has a rerun, I recommend you get her. That is barring any other future 2.0 support that comes out and blows her out of the water, but I still think she'll be pretty relevant going forward. Another great choice is Sokaku because I find her buffs to be that strong. Next to that, the third slot can be completely up to you for the most part. A traditional stun unit will be the best choice possible for the third option because you don't want to use Corin as much as possible, only up against stun enemies. So of course Lycon will be a great teammate for her. Not only can Lycon reliably stun enemies, but she'll also do an extra 35% more damage against anyone who is stunned as long as she has another physical or Victorian housekeeping unit on the team. Another great option to have if you don't have Lycon is Caesar, because she's also a physical unit, so that also procs her passive. Caesar is also a great option to have because she also has some pretty good daze capabilities, and also she can provide shield, which is pretty good for Corin. As of making this video right now, we are currently in the 1.6, 1.7 version, and we are in what I like to call the Aftershock meta. The Aftershock meta is basically where we have a lot of off-field support from characters like Pulchra and Trigger being able to help you from off the field, allowing your main DPS to remain on the field as much as possible. And as I've said earlier, Corin does best when she's swapped into fights and then swapped out, so that way you can only have her fight stunned enemies for more damage. You could still use Pulchra or Trigger, and actually Pulchra's not a bad option because she's also a physical unit, so therefore Corin's passive will proc, dealing more damage against stun enemies. But if you want optimal damage, then I highly do recommend you use a traditional stun unit that stays on the field like Lycon. Now you may notice I didn't use Lycon too much in my video. That's because my Lycon is level 1. I'll get around to it one day, I swear. I'll work on him. Now back to Corin, she relies on having to use her chain attack or ult to increase her damage output, and once again I highly recommend you get her W engine as it increases her energy regen when off the field, allowing you to spam more EX specials whenever she's out. And if you're wondering if I'm still salty if I don't have it, yes, I still am. Corin's gameplay involves her constantly attacking enemies for big damages. Her core passive Hyper Focus increases her damage when holding or tapping her basic attacks, so if you don't do this, you're gonna miss out on a lot of damage. Holding or repeatedly tapping her attacks increases her damage output, so you gotta keep it up for optimal gameplay. And I'm not gonna lie, it feels very satisfying to just saw up an enemy until they're dead. And for an added bonus, she'll actually rack up a nice amount of anomaly physical build-up damage as well. I will admit though, having to dodge mid-attack with Corin kinda does suck because it breaks up your flow, and that ruins the fun of having to do big damages. To lessen the amount that I move and dodge, sometimes I just start tanking the attacks from enemies around me because I'd rather just get the damage off instead. So I highly recommend that you bring units that can provide shields and heals from, say, Caesar or Astra respectively, as they would be a great fit for Corin, so you can just tank it out. This isn't too much of an issue when you're doing a one-on-one against a boss, but if you're fighting the twin ballet ones, then it's not that fun. So this is more of an issue when you're dealing with, say, a multiple group of enemies, so that way you can just tank out their attacks or dodge when you need to. Now for the final piece of the team, we have Bangboos. And I'll be real with you, I almost always neglect my Bangboos, but I do have some recommendations. If you had to use one, I would recommend Bangvolver as a good option to use. If you have 2 or more physical units on the team, then the anomaly buildup from him will be stronger. So more damage, can't argue against that. However, Butlerboo is a great option if you're going with a Victoria housekeeping setup. His generation of energy will come in handy for Corin, and also he shoots pancakes at enemies, you know, that's pretty awesome, you can't argue against that. And lastly, I would say Explorer Blue would be a great option to have if you want more utility than damage. He can heal, generate a shield, or increase your energy regen. Now for everyone's favorite part about building a character, disc drives. For disc drives, I went with a 4-piece Fang Metal and 2 Woodpecker. These are great options for DPS units, and it fits her really well. You want physical bonus damage on disc 5, crit rate or damage increase on disc 4. I would highly recommend you go with crit rate though. And lastly, maybe go with attack on disc 6. Hormone Punk is also a great option if you want to maximize the damage from swapping in and out, but I honestly just like having consistent damage, so I settled with the other 2 I mentioned earlier. I hunted for critical damage and crit rate for substats, and those are absolutely necessary if you want to do more damage for your DPS units, so good luck finding those. I took some stuff off Billy though, so don't tell him I did that or else he'll get mad. The recent dev talk in Zenless talks about how they want to make earlier release characters more relevant to the story and future content. Alongside that, they also added some really cool improvement to some characters and their kits, including Corin. One of the abilities that you can use with Corin right now in the Void game mode includes her having to suck in enemies with her attacks. This utility allows her to suck in enemies and bring them closer into her, so that way she can just fight them rather than having to chase them down across the entire battlefield all the time. Another ability has her shooting little projectiles out when she attacks for a bit more range. And there's also this funky dash attack she has. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's there if you want it, and you know what? I always welcome new change. If this is the start of what appears to be one of the many ways they'll implement updated gameplay for older units to make them more fresh, then look forward to other characters having these fun additions to their kits like Corin. Now, once again, some of these upgrades and changes are only available in the Void game mode, which is like a roguelike game mode, but I hope to God they implement this into the rest of the game, because imagine having the option to play different characters and different playstyles whenever you want to, and switching between different abilities. You can even turn Astra, a support unit, into a DPS with her Miku Beam. So if anybody from Hoyoverse is watching this, which I highly doubt anyone really is, but in the off chance, it breathes new life into older characters, and honestly, I would rather have this over new characters, I'm not gonna lie. If I can go off topic a little bit, I do like the direction that Zenless has been going in recently. As a player since launch, it's been making great improvements since the game's start, and I have not been disappointed every step of the way. No more TV gameplay, for an example. You know, rest in peace, but I personally won't miss you that much, honestly, so it is what it is. Anyways, back to the main topic at hand. After playing Corin, honestly, having built her and doing all this stuff, I found her to be really fun. She's another example of a unit that shouldn't be overlooked because they're placed lower on the tier list. And with the Void game mode augmentations, Corin is an excellent choice if you're looking to shake things up from your normal gameplay routine. Never sleep on a low tier character, because you never know if you might end up loving their playstyle and their character as a whole. Thank you guys for watching, and honestly, 10 out of 10 recommendation for Corin. I don't regret building her, and if you want to use her, I say go for it. Have a good one, guys.